This entire series is very special, not only due to its theological significance, but because of its impact on the entire children's genre. It is the type of work that will enlighten people of all ages, basically. So I will start this series in the order it was published, even though some people like the chronological order. And I've actually read it both ways, and the published order is just my favorite, but you can read it however you want. So if you wish to get a good feel for the book and get started in this journey, or if you know the book and you just want to hear a perspective on it, stay tuned. Welcome to biblioCultist, where I review books that I find interesting in the topics of religion, philosophy, history, and fiction. Please remember to subscribe to the channel. Click the bell if you want to get notifications when I put a new video out. Like the video, share the video, and comment on the video. If you do this, it really helps the channel grow. We are competing with a lot of other channels that don't even discuss books, or they just provide mindless entertainment, and those are fine for people that are into that, but those of us that like this kind of content should have more access and grow as a community. So the more you share the video, the more you engage with it, the better it is for the algorithm to promote it out there. So I really appreciate it. And I also put down here my X account if you want to communicate with me directly, and on the side my Ko-Fi where you can donate, you can check out my store. All these things, again, helps out as well as the channel keeps getting larger. In this episode, I'm going through the Chronicles of Narnia as a series, and I'll create a new playlist for that, and I'll start with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. All of this is obviously by C.S. Lewis. In this edition that I have is a box set from HarperCollins from 2007, but there's so many editions out there, just pick whichever one you like best. And again, I'm going to start in the order it was published, although you can read it in whichever order you want. I've seen letters from C.S. Lewis in which he actually suggests one thing and publishers suggest a different. So the difference is really one book or the other in its chronology that may change a little bit, but I still think that starting with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is probably the best way. So the very basis of the story resembles all the classics of the fairy tale genre. So a portal that leads to an alternative universe, a world that functions in a different way but contains, in essence, the reality from which the main character comes from. A fight between good and evil that is quite clear. So you're shifting from a world that seems to be gray and confusing to a land in which everything is clear cut. Good and evil is highly identifiable, which obviously manifests a preoccupation in modern human beings. They have been highly propagandized against understanding the world in this kind of binary, but attempting to confuse people into these eternal grays in which there's not really any clear-cut understanding of the world. And it's obviously a development from the French Revolution, the Enlightenment, relativism, postmodernism, etc. These kinds of books allow the child to experience a world that is quite clear in its ethics. The very notion of personal traits and how they manifest also, especially when confronted with a world like this with clear dichotomies, is profound because it allows personality to shine instead of everyone being cookie-cut characters. So some of the children are going to be tempted easily and some are not because of their innate character, which is another philosophical element that a lot of modern literature tries to do away with. The very idea that there is such a thing as innate characteristics, unchangeable aspects of our nature. Also, as you will see in the novel, and I try not to spoil the books that I review, jealousy and resentment are the basis for most temptations. Now, the myths utilized in this particular world are quite fascinating. like the notion that the evil white witch is actually a descendant of Lilith and not of Eve, calling her even a jinn, of all things, and even a giant, like the Jotuns of Norse lore. So this strange combination of Jewish Talmudic myths with European folklore seems to be only possible in this alternative universe, and that's kind of why I like it, because seeing these strange ideas kind of combined to create this world is masterful. And I've seen people criticize it because he is seen as a Christian author, and that's what he was, of course. But in his fantasy, he utilizes a lot of these tools, these mythological notions, and injects them into his story. And to some people, that feels pagan for some reason. It's the same accusation to Tolkien, who was a Catholic. Why are you using these allegorical presentations to advocate for your religion? And I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. I think that when you're playing in fiction, you have a lot more flexibility. It's not like Tolkien was saying that Saruman was a great, perfect allegory for some kind of Satan character or something like this. He actually hated allegories. No, he's a Catholic who's writing a novel. His ethics and his morality and his metaphysical conceptions will be manifested in his work, just like here. And of course, C.S. Lewis was a lot friendlier to allegories, so he's very transparent in who the lion is, for example. But obviously, readers should not be so nitpicky when it comes to fiction as they would be if they're reading a book on theology, for example, which should make sense, it should be coherent, etc. Now, this curious set of overlap can be well understood with the fawn's role with Lucy and with all the protagonists in general, but that initial appearance of the fawn, which for someone who's reading that and is very immersed in Christian lore, will automatically associate him with Satan. There's a feel that there's something off, that there's something dangerous about this character. And I think Lewis is playing with that on purpose so that you can understand certain concepts there. That this is not the world that you think it is, to give it a feel of danger. And he also seems to fulfill the cliche, although that changes later on. Obviously, once we get to the lion and the stone altar, we peek at its high level of Christological reference. It is a clear doctrine of salvation, an explication that is easy to understand for a child. What sacrifice means, what the ransom itself means, the idea of ancient magic, of resurrection, etc. I think the presentation of this level is so easy to understand that I think it does its job majestically. And I want to do a quote related to this. "It means," said Aslan, "that though the witch knew the deep magic, there is a magic deeper still which she did not know. Her knowledge goes back only to the dawn of time, but if she could have looked a little further back into the stillness and the darkness before time dawned, she would have read there a different incantation. She would have known that when a willing victim who had committed no treachery was killed in a traitor's stead, the table would crack and death itself would start working backward." So that is an awesome way of describing a lot of the Christian underlying motifs. And it also helps you kind of speculate what he means by who is the White Witch. Is she a representative of the ancient pagan gods? And he is alluding to the notion that Satan is a representative of this belief, but that the Christian message gives you an ontologically prior justification for its existence. Anyway, it's all speculation on my part, but it's a very interesting way of looking at it. Obviously, time itself in this world functions differently. Maturity is treated differently also in the work. You see at the end of this novel how everything has passed, but at the same time it hasn't. How we can live a life in seconds or lose a life lost in time itself. How the importance of taking things seriously is timeless. And you can either live your entire life and stay immature or mature in a very short time. Also, what makes the work special is its ability to use fantastical literature, including the use of perennial motifs and divergent sources, without losing the main purpose of the work, which in this case, in my opinion, is to teach Christianity. But by using this technique, Lewis is able to display his knowledge of many religions without falling into the problematic and heretical trend of ecumenism, as it is called in traditional circles. Just because he's using the word jinn doesn't mean he is a Muslim, or just because he's using Jotuns doesn't mean he's a neo-pagan. Just because he's using a faun doesn't mean he believes that we should have altars to a goat-headed deity. Point is, he can utilize his knowledge in a way that still communicates his main focus without altering the purity and dignity of the religion he is promoting. I say this because a lot of fantasy works love to mishmash all myths into one so as to sound more universal. But Lewis is able to present his motif as universal using different cultural references without destroying his particular perspective. And that's not easy to do. So obviously, I highly recommend this work. And it will be a pleasure for me to go through the entire series little by little in the channel. I mean, as I go through it, and I've read it many times, I'm just going over it again. These are very short, easy books to read. They're very pleasant. So it's the kind of work that you will reread in your life many times. If you haven't read it, get the best edition you can find out there. Get a box set and start with it. If you have read it, it's always nice and enjoyable to discuss it again, to go back into that world in your mind and in your heart and consider the notions and ideas that are presented there. And if you want an easy way to at least catechize your child in some basic elements of Christian theology, then there you go. That's where you can start. But as an adult, you will enjoy it as well. So hopefully you enjoyed this short review. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, like the video, share the video, comment on the video. Leave me a comment if you have anything to say about C.S. Lewis or about this work. I really appreciate you folks being with me. See you next time.